Joke with Norm, I was trying to decide if there's some people in another room, how many people are actually going to come back after lunch. I've led partners meetings for lots and lots of years, and what we do actually as the meeting progresses is I tell our meeting organizers to just keep picking up a row off the back, because I actually like to see the seats full, and instead of looking out at lots and lots of, and if you don't pick up the rows off the back, what happens is all the rows in the front end up vacant when you're trying to speak. So, but Norm says, you guys come back. But I'm impressed, and I'm very impressed with this conference and all that you're doing. And I do feel very much a part of you. So I view this as a privilege, and I appreciate the invitation to come. I spent 10 years of my career in St. Louis, and I really believe that the heartland of America is part of America, and it's a very, very important part of America. And I love and respect the values that you demonstrated at lunch. And I thought it was great that Norm showed us he has a heart as he was paying tribute to his friend. I think that just simply is a sign of the size of the man. And I just want to do one thing. I'd love to do this more than short, but I actually have a real strong passion about leadership, so I want to get to the conversation on leadership. But one of the boards that I'm now a part of, I'm a trustee of the IFRS Foundation, so that's the group that oversees the IASB, that oversees IFRS. And so I will acknowledge this may not be popular and it may not be a view that you all share, but nevertheless I'm going to still state it. And that is my view that the capital markets are global markets, my view that global markets need a global language, my view that if we had a single set of high quality standards, our investors would be better served, and I believe preparers and others will one day believe that we in fact are better off if we in fact had a single set of high quality standards. And I realize that our FASB member, who's not now here, who wouldn't necessarily share my view when I now say, and I believe that that single set of high quality standards will be IFRS. And so I'm hopeful that we get the SEC approving and allowing those standards to be used, and I personally believe that would be a step forward. And then I quickly acknowledge not everybody sees the world the way that I do, but as a trustee of the IFRS Foundation, I do feel a duty to be an advocate for what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And we're on a journey, and we've been on this journey for a long time. I'm 38 years in this business. So I feel like we've been on this journey for 38 years, and I actually think we are potentially near the finish line, potentially at a place where we can, in fact, take that last step. But it won't be free, and the implications to all of us will not be de minimis if, in fact, we ever finish that race. Enough there. I don't want to debate it, and I'm willing to acknowledge that not everybody sees the world the way that I do, but that, nevertheless, is my view. That we have global capital markets, global markets need a global language, and a single set of high quality standards. Those of us who participate in the financial reporting process, we would be better off if we had it. Now, what I want to do, I have a real passion for leadership. This is what I feel like I've done for the whole of my life. And so I appreciate the privilege of actually sharing with you some perspectives and some thinking that I have and some experiences that I've had related to leadership. And what I believe about leadership is that this is a journey that we've been on also for a very long time, and I think there is a long time yet to run. And I don't think I know everything there is to know about leadership. And what we hope we've done with the book is we've started a conversation, and we hope that that conversation will continue. And if we all become intentional and overt about our efforts to be effective as leaders, I think we're all going to be collectively better off. Now, I've attended, in year number 38, I've attended a gazillion meetings like this. I've even organized more than a few. And I also, when I reflect on those that I've attended, I try to remember, what did I take away from that meeting? What was it that actually stayed with me? And what I've discovered, not unsurprisingly, is that when I actually engage and I put myself into it and I actually try to go with them or participate in a very active way, I get something more out of this. So what I'd like to do, and I know it's hard in this format, but I'd still like to try to have a facilitated discussion rather than just make a presentation. So I'm going to ask you to engage with me and be willing to provide perspectives to me. And what I want you to do as we prepare for that is, when I say the word leader, I want you to, what is it that comes to your mind? Now, I'm not going to try to mine that from the audience right now, so I'm just going to speculate that when I say leader, what happens is you think Winston Churchill, or you think President Obama, or you think Nelson Mandela, or you think Martin Luther King, or you think Bill Gates, or you might think Steve Jobs, or maybe you think Jack Welch or Jeff Immelt. You think of some iconic leader when I say leader. What I'd like for the next few minutes, for the period of time that I have the privilege of leading our discussion, when I say leader, I want you to think about you. And I want you to recognize and accept that there is some group of people around you who look to you as their leader. And it isn't important to me whether that's a team of 5, or a team of 50, or a team of 500, or a team of 5,000. When I say leader, there's a group of people who will look to you to be their leader. And so I'd like you to just think about that, you as a leader, and then I'd like you to think about, over the next little while we have this conversation, what you can do to become even more effective in that very critical role. A very, very critical role. But leader doesn't just apply to someone who enjoys the title CEO. Leader applies to anyone who's trying to lead a group of diverse individuals to try to accomplish a shared goal and objective. They may be inside the enterprise, and you might even have sort of a directive kind of role with them, or maybe you just have an influencing kind of role where you're trying to pull people forward to try to accomplish an objective. But if you would, think about that term leader and then allow yourself to think about you. This isn't about Winston Churchill. This is about you. So what I want to do is just, I'm going to sort of click through some of this stuff pretty quick to try to get to some points that I want to see if we can have a discussion about. All I'm trying to communicate on this slide is I think leadership matters, and this is the product of surveying executives in terms of what they viewed as their critical priorities with respect to top talent, and you see how important succession planning is, and you see how important leadership development is. Nothing complicated here, and I wouldn't expect any debate. I've seen other comparable surveys when I was just at a meeting this past week, and we had a survey of business leaders on the big challenges they have, and the number one was leadership development. Leaders saying leadership development was the single biggest challenge. Now, just to try to make that point in a slightly different way, this is a survey that Deloitte did of security analysts who are valuing companies and then putting price points out as they look at discounted cash flows. And interesting, if you're an analyst and you look at the enterprise and its historical performance, and then you project your model, you then make some judgment about the leadership that's at that enterprise. And if you believe in that leadership team, based on the survey we did of these analysts, you put a 15% premium on average on top of that cash flow as you're trying to value that enterprise. And if you think the leadership is really weak and chaotic, you put a 20% discount on it. So perhaps there's a 35% gap in terms of future performance expectations based on someone's expectations of leadership. The only point I'm trying to make is I think leadership matters. I think it's important. I don't want to debate it. And I think there's 10,000 ways we could actually try to illustrate that point, including your own experience as you look at people who have actually successfully transformed organizations and the strong leadership that was brought to accomplish that. Now, I'd like to see if you guys will join me and give me some perspective or some help here. What are the conditions that need to be in place in order for a team to feel that they're well led? And this is one of my favorite open-ended questions. As the CEO of Deloitte, a position I no longer enjoy, we have to put the word emeritus behind that. but as the CEO of Deloitte and with the power of the Deloitte brand, modestly exaggerated, I can have access to almost any business leader in almost any country, in almost any industry, at almost any time, modestly exaggerated. But I get a lot of C-suite access. And because I'm a student of leadership and because I really feel there's so much to discover about leadership and there's so much yet to be learned, I like to try to learn. So I like to ask people this question: what are the conditions that need to be in place in order for a team to feel that they're well led? And if I look across at the executive and I don't feel like I'm connecting yet, then I ask the follow-up question and say, when Johnny or Mary go home for Mother's Day weekend and they sit down with mom and dad at the dinner table and their parents look across at Johnny or Mary and they say, how's your career going at, and then you fill in the blank, wherever Johnny and Mary are working, and then they say, is that organization well led? What are the conditions that need to be in place in order for Johnny or Mary to say, Mom and Dad, absolutely, my organization is really well led? What are the conditions that Johnny or Mary need to be experiencing in order to make that statement? Help me, some ideas. What are the conditions that need to be in place? I'll repeat it for purposes of just making sure everybody can hear. Some ideas? What are the conditions that need to be in place? Please, thank you.
Effective communication.
Okay, communication. Communication has to be effective at a well-led organization. What else? What other conditions need to be in place? Please.
Management facilitates its mission.
Okay, management facilitates its mission. Management actually believes in its mission and is working to try to make that happen in a well-led organization. Okay, thank you. Other thoughts? Please, right back here. Say that one more time.
Responsibility.
Responsibility. Okay. I'm a pretty agile guy.
Right.
But it's quite irresponsible what I did with all that water.
Jim, you sure that's water in that jug there?
I love you guys. We had one more comment here.
Mutual respect.
Okay, mutual respect. In a well-led organization, mutual respect is going to be part of what that's about. Please.
Vision.
Vision. A well-led organization has a vision. What else? Please, right back here. Clearly stated and attainable goals. A well-led organization has clearly stated and attainable goals. I like it. Please, on the credibility. A well-led organization has some credibility. Maybe those leaders are credible or the enterprise itself is the leaders. The leaders are credible. They do what they say they're going to do. Please, Norm.
Integrity.
Integrity is part of a well-led organization. Absolutely. There are values inside a well-led organization. Mary and Johnny are not going to respond in a positive way without it. Please.
Reward performance.
Okay, able to reward performance. There's a performance management system that gets recognition and also reward for those who are performing. What else in a well-led organization? Please. Inspiration. The leaders are inspirational. They actually, not only do they have a vision, but they actually have some aspiration in that vision. One more, and then I'm going to move on. Please. Accountability is part of a well-led organization. Absolutely. Now, we could go on and on. We could spend an hour on this, and I would actually have fun with it. And if we had whiteboards, we could be filling up these whiteboards, and we could be thinking about what we're learning as we're trying to look at that notion of the conditions that need to be in place in order for an organization to be well-led. Now, what I believe, if we had that whiteboard, and we were then trying to organize all of those thoughts, I think we might be able to find there would be a whole bunch of the things that we've said we might put under that word clarity. Someone earlier said there's clear, achievable goals. Climate, that whole notion of integrity, the mutual respect, we could identify lots of the comments that we made under that notion of climate, because I think of that as really being also just simply a part of the culture of an organization. A well-led organization has a strong culture. And then finally, I think a well-led organization has the capability, or they're focusing on building the capability to do the things that people are being asked to do. But I think you can have some fun with this notion of conditions for success and just what I think we can do as leaders. And since we're on an academic campus, I'm going to suggest that what we're doing right now is Leadership 101. We're building the foundation for anyone that is trying to bring together a group of diverse individuals and create an environment for them to work together effectively to accomplish a common goal, the essence of the leadership challenge. You have to lay the foundation. You've got to put in place the conditions for success. And as you evaluate and decide what are those conditions for success, and you see gaps between where you assess yourself today and what you view as the essence of those conditions that are needed for success, then you're going to go to work to try to fill those gaps. Let me just try to punctuate this with just one quick story. I'm on the Coach K Fuqua Center for Leadership and Ethics, and they use Coach K to sort of make sure that all 30 of us always come. And if you get 4 hours with Coach K, you go. And you actually kind of work your schedule to make sure you go. And I find him a fascinating leader. And now on this notion of conditions for success, he is right this instant thinking about assembling his team for the Olympics in London. He's going to be the coach for the Olympic team. And one of the things that he shared with us when we were having our meeting in New York on Wednesday, he was sharing with us an experience that he had for the World Championship team that just played in Istanbul a couple of years ago. And what Coach K does when he brings his team together, and he's trying to put in place the conditions for success, he works very hard to make sure that he's created a climate for success. And one of the things that he does with his teams, and there's a book, I can't remember the title of the book, but he sort of captures the experience of the 2008 Olympic team in Beijing on this point. But what he does is he sets standards, and he has the team set standards for what it is that they're going to do. And then he has the team also identify and articulate the consequences if in fact they fail to actually meet those standards. But instead of him, quote, coming and communicating the rules, if you want to be on the US Olympic team, here are the rules, and here's what I expect. Instead, he has the team come together and say, guys, what should our standards be? And he said they'll almost always set the standards higher than any leader would actually try to articulate in any set of rules. And so one of his standards is on the team and the way that he communicates it. He says, when we communicate, we're going to look each other in the eye. And we're going to make eye contact when we communicate. We're going to look each other in the eye when we communicate. That's one of the standards of a Coach K team. And then he goes on, and we're going to tell the truth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now the point. He said before they went out to play the first game at Istanbul, he had the team together for their first meeting, and he was, trying to give them their sort of little pre-game debrief and perspective and laying out the strategy and plans for the day. And he said Kevin Durant was looking at the floor. And so he called him out. He says, Kevin, one of our standards is we look each other in the eye when we communicate. And so Kevin pulled his head up and listened to Coach K finish that drill. They dismissed and headed to the court, and Kevin held back. And then he went up to Coach K and he said, I'm sorry, Coach, that I wasn't looking at you when you were communicating. I was listening to everything you said. I heard everything you said, but I'm just a shy player. It's hard for me to look people in the eye. And then Coach K said to Kevin, Kevin, you're my alpha dog. You are the star. We can't have anyone on the team think there's any space between me and you. And when I communicate, you have to look at me. And when you communicate to me, I'm going to look at you. And when the players see you on the floor, as the leader, they're going to understand who you are and the way that you're going to play. And then Coach K went on and just sort of amplified that modestly by saying he was, after the first game, they're reviewing the film, and what Coach K tells his filmers is he doesn't want to just simply have the view of the full court so you can see how all the players are always positioned. He likes to zoom in and try to get a shot of the face. He likes to just catch the players, tries to catch their emotion. So he put up a picture of Kevin Durant as he was coming across the half line with the ball and his head up looking down the floor and just coming, and just with this intense passion that he was going to score. And so he then paused on that image of Kevin and that intense look of a competitor with that winning instinct. And he said to Russell Westbrook, "Russell, how do you feel when you see Kevin looking that way when he comes across the half court?" And he said, Russell Westbrook paused for just a moment, and then he said, "Coach, when I see Kevin looking that way, I think we're going to win." And then he just tried to get Kevin to really accept this notion of you are the leader. And when you play as a leader, when you communicate as a leader, when you actually are able to express yourself as a leader, there's a real multiplier effect. Coach K, putting in place those conditions for success. Think about it in the world where you're a leader.